he goes on to say that, you know, if we can think about how we reintroduce craft skills into the way that we do things, or a craft approach, and I mean that in the broadest philosophical sense, it's very important to us as people about how then we feel that we are giving value back to society. And I've also think that we, in the industrial mass media world, has given up the public realm. This is a picture of a girl in London somewhere on a swing by a bus stop. The idea that all our spaces should be highly functional rather than playful is important. I also wonder whether CCTV is actually the thing that we need to use to make ourselves safer. And surely we should be taking personal accountability in terms of what that means to ourselves and to each other. On the right is a picture of downtown Tokyo, and I was there a couple of years ago doing a learning journey with some guys on mobile communications. And this guy gets off his bike and he puts it down and he steps off it and he walks away. And I look at my friend and I said, well, he hasn't locked his bike. That's insane. And he said, well, he doesn't need to. You don't have theft in Japan like that. And for me, that was a really profound sort of insight. And I think about the way that we, you know, certain parts of our country where we have forgotten actually as a community that we need to take responsibility for our public spaces, that we should own them as a community and not give them up as dead spaces. And that has been a result, I think, of many years of neglect of understanding how we use those spaces. Steve Heppel is someone that has also been very influential in my thinking. And he said that in the 20th century and prior to that, we built big things. We made sort of big buildings and whatever it is that we made. But he said the 21st century is about the learning century, the learning age, where we're learning to help each other. And the gentleman I was speaking to last night, we're talking about education that is very close to my heart because all of my kids are dyslexic, and has caused me a huge amount of angst over the last 20 years in trying to help them get through education. Sort of says that, in fact, you know, what we should do is think about the idea of critiquing, creating, communicating and collaborating. That is a completely different process of actually how we are communicating. We need to think about the organisation perhaps as a village rather than the 150-year-old construct of the organisation. And in a village where, again, its rich variety of people working and collaborating together is extremely important for us to think about a different way of organising ourselves. And we need to deschool business schools, I think. It was Ivan Illich that talked about the deschooling of societies. And somebody once said to me, you know, well, business actually is a social science. So surely, I know this is the Eden Project, but shouldn't this what be a business school looks like, where we understand our connection to the world and nature and to ethics and a way of working, which is completely different? And it was John Seddon who talked about the fact that in a linear world, we try and work on bits of the system to make them far more efficient. Whereas what happens is you never look at the whole, and as a consequence of that, what you get is catastrophic failure. Something that he directs, in fact, or looks at in terms of the NHS, where in fact their desire to work efficiently means they're not working effectively. And we need to simplify. I wish I'd got a picture of Gabriel's axe, because I would have liked to replace it here, because I think that's an extraordinary piece of beauty that he created. But equally, I think that this is something that we can think about in terms of how we could or should simplify our lives in ways that make more sense. So we need a bit of a language. We need a different type of language, perhaps, that describes this world. And I just want to run through these very quickly because I know I'm running out of time. Well, we've got to think about the fact that the world is networked. We've got to think about lightweight solutions to what we do. We've got to think about how we become more flexible. Maybe also as organisations and the way that we lead our lives. Perhaps we should be more adaptive and be prepared to adapt to the things that confront us. We should think about Creative Commons and the way that we maybe use our culture and content to be more open in the sharing of it. And we definitely should be more open source in the way that we work, and I've heard that word used a few times today. We need deep context. I can remember, and I'm sorry, you know, some of you may not disagree, but Standing in 1985 in Wembley Stadium listening to Bruce Springsteen play the first bars of The River on his harmonica made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. So where do we and how do we find that deep context and all the things that we do, which brings a more powerful communication and engagement with people? We need to embed sociability into everything that we do, whether that's in the digital sphere or whether that's in the physical sphere. You know, how do we make sort of environments more sociable? Because if we make them more sociable, then we want to spend more time in them. The world is definitely going to be more mobile. It's not online or offline, it's only blended reality, okay? That is the way we experience the world. I hate the word digital. Networked economics, how we think about how we share, how we create commerce, and how we incentivize each other to actually get more out of what we put into things. We need to be collaborative and participatory. We need to think about social innovation, people coming together from all walks of life to maybe share their views on how they could make something better for a local community. It is about I and it is about we, and we cannot separate those two things. It is absolutely about trust and transparency. It's about shared collective joy, the idea that we can all share things together and get enjoyment out of that. And it is a read-write culture that we live in, and we can't ignore that. It's about collective intelligence, how we collectively share our knowledge and pull that. It's about taking different types of information and putting that together, what we call mashups, that allow us to create different types of knowledge and value. It's hyper-local, but it's also super global. This is Lauren Luke, who's a 21-year-old young lady, a single mum from Newcastle, wondering how she would get a job and make a living. And she started Panacea 81, showing people how to put makeup on their faces. She is a global internet sensation, running a global business out of her bedroom. It's about technology as a cooperation. It's not Web 2.0. It's not the emphasis on the technology. It's about the collaborative ability to amplify human talents of cooperation. And it's about lifelong learning. We can no longer stop and think that we've learned everything. We have to learn something new every day and think about how we apply that to our own unique life journey. It's about individual and collective accountability. And it is grassroots. In case you haven't recognised, there's a picture of some people having a lovely chat over breakfast this morning. It's about craftsmanship, permeable flows of information, and it's about being playful. How can we make our daily lives playful and enjoyable? Surely that's a far better way to be living. And coming to the end, there's a guy called Bill Bailey. There he is. He's an ugly man, isn't he? But he's actually very funny. And I use this when I talk to technologists sometimes. And I say, you know, Bill sometimes asks how he comes up with his jokes. And Bill stands and he says, do you know how I come up with my jokes? I start with a laugh and I work backwards. What do I need to do to create that amount of laughter? Thank you very much.